to the fourth minus 2j squared equals 24, minus 24 equals 0 is very similar to how we solve like x squared minus 2x minus 24. What multiplies to this and adds to this. So what multiplies to that and adds to that. The big difference is it's not going to be j and j, it's going to be j squared and j squared, because that's how we get to j to the fourth. So what multiplies to negative 24 and adds to negative 2, that would be negative 6 and positive 4. And then again, if you multiply these out, this will give you negative 6j squared. This will give you plus 4j squared, which is why it's negative 2j squared. And then these two make j to the fourth, and these two make the negative 24. So it all works out very similar to quadratics, even though technically it is a fourth degree polynomial equation. Now from here, we're going to solve this further. So our two options are j squared minus 6 equals 0, or j plus 4 equals 0. So if you solve this one on the left, it's going to have irrational roots here. It's going to have irrational answers. J squared equals 6, so square root, plus or minus that. J equals plus or minus the square root of 6. J squared plus 4 has no real answers. So for right now, we're going to stick with real answers. So this would mean no real solutions for that one. So this would be the only real solution for this function, or for this equation, which is what you see right there. Let's try another one here. Just mix it up. That one's very similar. Let's try this one. So m to the fourth minus 7m squared minus 18 equals 0. So again, multiplies to this, adds to this. So we're going to use m squareds. Again, in order to get to a power of 4, we have to use m squareds. Multiplying to negative 18, adding to negative 7 would be a negative 9 and a positive 2. From here, we're going to set each one equal to 0. So this one equals 0, or m squared plus 2 equals 0. This one you can actually factor again, n minus 3, m plus 3 equals 0, which will give you plus or minus 3 as possible answers. And this one would be no real solutions. So the only real solutions would be plus or minus 3. Let's make it a little more complicated here. Let's make it not equal to 0. Let's do negative 1, a to the fourth plus 8a cubed plus 56 plus a squared equals 8a cubes. Right off the bat, I'll get rid of those a cubes. We don't need those. And then a little bit tricky here because the a to the fourth is negative, which is, again, just a little bit tricky. If we multiply this whole thing by negative 1, technically it's both sides by negative 1. That would give you a to the fourth minus a squared minus 56 equals 0, which is what we want. And then we could, again, multiply to this, add to the negative 1. That would be a negative 8 and a positive 7. That's the two factors. Setting each one equal to 0. Again, this one is going to be no real solutions. But this one, if you add 8 over, you get a squared equals 8. Take a square root, plus or minus, don't forget. So a would equal plus or minus square root of 8. But square root of 8 is really square root of 4 times square root of 2. So that would be 2 square root of 2. So the simplified answer would be plus or minus 2 square root of 2 is the only possible real answers. If we want to go complex here, I'm going to turn off this just to make it a little bit easier on myself. Not that I can't do it, but just to make it a little bit easier. Q to the fourth minus 14q squared plus 40. So now I'm saying complex answers are okay. So we're going to see some i's show up if needed, when needed. So multiplying to 40, adding to negative 14, that would be two negatives, so negative 10 and also negative 4. So we're not going to have any complex answers this time, but we are going to have some rational and irrational answers. This, if I add this over, q squared would equal 10, square root, plus or minus. Q would equal plus or minus the square root of 10. No way to simplify that. And this one, if I add the 4 over, q squared equals 4, square root, plus or minus. Q would equal plus or minus 2. So we've got 4 possible answers this time, and they're all real answers. Even though I turn the complex thing on, I might get some that eventually are complex. Let's try, I don't know, how about this one? This one looks like it might have some complex answers. So x to the fourth plus 11x squared plus 28 equals 0. So multiplies to this, adds to this. So this would be x squared plus 4, x squared plus 7. So lots of complex answers here. So x squared plus 4 equals 0, x squared plus 7 equals 0. Solving this would be x squared equals -4, square root both sides, plus or minus. This gives you plus or minus 2i, because it's the square root of a negative, so that gives you the I, because square root of -4 is the square root of 4 times square root of -1, and square root of -1 is the I. So there's your 2i. Similarly here, this would be x squared equals -7, square root, plus or minus. This would be x equals plus or minus the square root of 7i. So there are our 4 answers, 2 there, 2 there. As you can see, that matches. I will do one more, just a little bit complicated. Okay, that looks super complicated. Let's do it. 6 minus 6f cubed minus 9f squared minus 7f minus 9f to the fourth equals -8f to the fourth minus 6f cubed minus 7f minus 8f squared. Okay, so what's the same on both sides? I can get rid of these on both sides, get rid of these on both sides. So I get 6 minus 9f squared minus 9f to the fourth equals -8f to the fourth minus 8f squared. So I'm going to add the 9f to the fourths to both sides. It's going to be 1f to the fourth on the right side. I'm going to add the 9f squareds over to give me 1f squared on the right side. I'm going to subtract the 6, and that will give me just the -6 over there. And now that we should be able to factor. So f to the fourth plus 1f squared minus 6. So that would be, so multiplying to -6, adding to 1. So f squared plus 3, f squared minus 2. So f squared plus 3 could be 0. That's going to be some complex answers here. So f squared equals -3 plus or minus square root. So that would be plus or minus the square root of 3i. Whereas this one, f squared minus 2 equals 0. Adding the 2 over gives you f squared equals 2, square root, plus or minus. So f equals plus or minus the square root of 2. So there's our 4 answers. Half are complex, half are real.